Hey, everybody, welcome to the Achieve Results Now podcast. This is Mark Cardone.
And Theron Feidt.
I love this episode, and I love it so much. This is, we talk about this almost on every podcast, but we've never really dove into it. The one thing I hear out in the world today is everybody saying, well, I'm smarter than that person. Like, I know more than that person.
Yeah.
And what we're going to talk about today is 3 steps to truly be more educated and be smarter.
Yeah.
And I think this is great. So if you're listening to this and you know somebody who, really wants to be more educated and all that stuff, share this podcast with them. Like, really, like, hit that share button, get it out there.
I was thinking you might go in the direction of, if you know somebody that's dumb, share this podcast. That's where
Tell
I thought
them,
you were.
tell them, I think you need to be smarter. And here's a great podcast. But really, as leaders, right? Like, our job and our function is to really have the highest and best information, or at least the best information to make decisions, and as we make decisions, the best way to make good decisions, you can never know everything, right? But what we can do is make sure that we have good information, good experience, and we're coming from a point of knowledge, as leaders, right? And I think if we look at all the philosophers and all the Stoics and everybody in history, there was a lot of emphasis, right, put on the ability to increase your knowledge base, not necessarily your intelligence, right? Where intelligence is important, everybody should, be able to read and things like that, but your actual knowledge and wisdom. Wisdom is a great word.
Wisdom. Yes, it is. It is. So the first one is educate yourself. And we talked about this in the last podcast. We've talked about this many times, but it's daily learning something, but do it on purpose. Don't do it by accident. You can say that the problems you have in your life are learning experiences. And, I've heard that many times. And when you're in the right frame of mind, it's true. But when you're in the problem itself, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel true. It's like, I don't care if this is a learning lesson. This stinks. I hate this. Right. But you can do a lot ahead of time before you get into those problems by educating yourself. And, college is important. Learning a trade is important. All these things are important. But how about learning about people? How about learning how to communicate? How about learning how to deal with your own emotions? How about learning about shedding your ego? How about learning about all those other things? I mean, that's what we're talking about with education, is not just the nuts and bolts behind the things, but to really expand and do it on a daily basis. So it doesn't feel like it's just part of your day. It doesn't feel like, oh, I'm going to school, I got to study for X number of hours a day. It's just part of it.
Sure. And I think I heard once you can't read yourself. You can't read yourself safe from problems. Somebody said, like, hey, look, education and books, I think they said book learning, right? Like, book learning is great, right? But, especially parents and people like that, we know that we can tell people and teach people and all of the things, but they're still going to make their own decisions and make mistakes, right? And, especially as leaders, like, we can read all we want, we can learn all we want, we're still going to make those mistakes. But a thing to remember is your mistakes and your troubles and your pains are not unique, right? Somebody in the world has been through this before and has probably written about it. Perfect example, right? If your feet smell, you're going to go on Google and say, how do I fix foot odor, right? And so, and stay with me for a second.
Okay.
Like, there's all these things. And how many times, like, we joke about medicine, right? Like, oh my God, I have like a thing on my ear. What is this thing on my ear? And what does it mean? And we immediately go to Google and we look up, oh, well, somebody's experienced this and here's what it is. True or untrue, whatever. How often do you see people who Google, like, how can I be a better spouse, right? How can I be a better parent? How can I be more fit and enjoy my workouts? So there's so many positive things that we're not Googling, that there's books and podcasts and, I mean, so many resources out there, so instead of, just Googling kind of the easy stuff that whatever, find those proactive books and podcasts like this one that are going to not only help your feet not smell, but help your life not smell.
I was wondering where you're going to go with that.
That's going to be the quote card from this podcast. Literally, like, not only can you help your feet not smell, but you can help your life not smell.
I like it.
There's just so many resources, podcasts, books. But what you said, I think, is right. Every day, even if it's a 5-minute podcast. There's a great marketing podcast I listen to. It's literally 4 minutes a day. I listen to it while I'm making breakfast. That's great.
Yeah.
So find something and really hammer in on
that. I think the other thing before we move on to the second one, it just gets your mind in the right frame. Right. I mean, that's really what it does, is whether you're listening or reading or watching something that's educational, motivational, or both, it's going to set yourself up for success. And it's probably not going to last the whole day often, but it will last to get you moving in the other direction. And then we know action creates motivation. Once we get into something, once we create some momentum, now we have it. Now things are going to be moving. It gets get your day started.
Absolutely. So once we leave education, right, I think the second important thing is conversation. And that's just that simple, right? It's talking to people, and it's, listening, and, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, right? And I know everybody says that. The 80-20 rule, right? Like, every conversation should be really 80% listening and 20% speaking if your goal is to actually understand and learn.
Yeah, unless you have two people that have the same goal, and then not much happens.
It's a very quiet conversation.
Yeah, but oftentimes that's not the case. Many people are very eager to talk about themselves and very eager to answer questions, especially if your questions are sincere. Being curious is a very important quality to have. Curious about people, curious about their experience, and to be able to do this, you need to get rid of your ego. Because if you go in like, I'm smarter than this person, I know more, for whatever reason, whatever you tell yourself in your head, you're going to block the magic that can happen in a conversation.
Absolutely. And I think I think about, the proverbial family table, right? Where, this person is saying, I like this, and this person's saying, yeah, but that's not right. I like this.
Right.
Or, think about all the conversations that are going on right now in the world, and how many of them could really be helped by somebody coming in and just say, that's interesting. Like, I might not agree with you, but I'd love to hear why you feel that way. Right. Because, like, look, I enter conversations assuming I'm the dumbest person in the room, and I learn and like, look,
good
sometimes
assumption.
It's a great assumption, and sometimes I'm right. and I am blessed to be the dumbest person in a lot of the rooms I'm in, because I learn so much, right? But I think entering a conversation, and being adversarial and saying, oh, I'm going to win this argument,
right.
You just can't. What was that, Dale Carnegie? You can't win an argument.
Right.
But I think it's important, if you're really on a quest to learn and somebody has a different viewpoint than you don't have to, like, there's nothing saying you have to agree, but it's just interesting. Like, if you don't fully understand everything,
right,
it's hard for you to argue, right? It's hard to make good points. So,
well, it's a lot like when we're writing the book, you had a great resource. Your mind was open. You ask her about, getting the book going. How do we self-publish? All of that. And if you had the idea of, wow, what does this person know? You would have never learned all that.
For sure. And there were definitely times when she would say something, and I'd go, yeah, I don't know if I like that. Can we do this? And she would explain, like, no, like, this is how it works, right? But I think about martial arts, right? There's a lot of things we teach in martial arts. Have you ever had somebody come in who says, well, geez, I don't want to start at white belt. I know a lot of stuff already.
Actually, didn't we?
You know what I mean? And it's like, no, like, you have to understand.
Didn't we just have one?
we just did. And you go, but there's so much foundation and basics.
Goodness.
So,
Yeah.
if somebody came in and said, well, I don't understand why, and you explained, like, look, if you don't learn this, you're going to have a foundational issue here, and it's really going to be a problem. I think that's just the natural course of learning, is you have to, what did Covey say, right? Seek first to understand,
Then to be
and
understood.
then to be understood. And I think there's so much power in just asking questions. Maybe you'll just learn how dumb the other person is. That's okay.
Yeah.
Right. But if that's the case, then why do you feel that you need to overpower somebody who doesn't understand something? It's really about confidence.
Yeah. And it shows your lack of confidence.
That's right.
When you feel like you have to overpower somebody by your words, by, just your attitude, or you're shutting the conversation down by calling them names or whatever, that just shows that you don't have a good grasp of the concept, but also you're afraid.
Yeah.
Right. You're fearful of what the truth is.
Yeah.
Or you don't want to hear it. That's really what it is. In martial arts, we talk about a mind of a white belt, coming into it. I don't usually like to have students come in that have trained before, because oftentimes they think they know what they're doing. They think they're better than they are. But every once in a while, I get surprised, and I get pleasantly surprised, and they have a mind like a white belt. I think that's just such a great concept to have, to take, not just if you're learning a new martial arts, you're going to a different dojo, but like you said, in life, you're coming in, you're going to do this certain business. You know some about it, but you don't know enough about it. Well, learn, ask questions, get in the conversation. And your example of, you're saying, well, I don't really like that. That's okay to say, but you're open enough to listen to the reasons why you should do it anyways.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
That's how it should be. It shouldn't, and you shouldn't take somebody's advice without questioning it either. Like, if I'm teaching somebody something and somebody goes to me, well, I think it should be done this way, I'm not going to be like, what are you talking about? I've been doing martial arts for 40 years. That's dumb. There are definitely martial arts that say that.
Yeah.
But I'll just say, well, here's why you need to do it. So I don't mind being questioned, because I'm confident in what I'm teaching.
Yeah.
And just that example with you, she was very confident teaching you, that she wasn't offended by your question.
No.
She just told you this is how it is.
And you never know. Like, the person questioning you may have a better way. Like, an outsider coming in may say, you might go, oh my God, like, that makes a lot of sense, right?
Yes.
So
sure.
I think conversation is like, people just aren't that great at it, especially now.
No.
We're always trying to one up. We're always trying
Yeah.
to do the thing. Listening is such a great skill, and asking questions is such a great skill to develop. So
don't be a one-upper.
Practice.
We don't like those people, one-uppers.
No, instead of telling, you don't have to talk about your vacation. Ask them about theirs, right? Ask them where they went. If you really want to talk about your vacation, write a blog, right? And if people care, they'll read it, right? But let the other people do the thing.
Yes. Yeah.
I want to talk. So number 3, let's talk about. So we talked about education. We talked about conversation. I love number 3, because it's the most skipped way to educate yourself, and it doesn't even really make sense when you first think about it. Solitude.
Yes. Yeah. I love solitude.
I got really quiet after I said it on purpose. That was like a
setup. Oh, sorry.
No. Solitude. Long pause.
Yeah.
And I know there's just so much value in just being by yourself.
So I think people that don't know about meditation, they give it a bad rap, because they have the vision of the monk sitting, legs crossed, shaved head, and just meditating all day. Yes, some people do that. But we're talking meditation, you don't even need to sit. You could be walking through the forest, the woods, a nature trail, and you're walking, but you're actually meditating. Sitting in solitude, You could be doing yoga. Yoga is a great way to do it. You could just be stretching. You could just take a walk and watch the sunrise or the sunset. I mean, those are things. But solitude is important because then you're listening to your own thoughts. And sometimes you might not like what you hear, but what it does, it kind of filters things out and gets you, at least with me, it gets me reset.
Yeah, and I think when people, exactly what you said, I think when people think about solitude, they think meditating, and they think I need silence, and I need to sit, and I need to not be doing anything, and I need an empty head, right? And those things, like, for a lot of us, it's just not realistic on a consistent basis. It's great if you can do it, if you have time to do it.
Yeah, for sure.
But like some of us meditate by doing a hobby, right? Like you can actually sit and do a puzzle, right? And your brain will, right? Some of us, have you ever had a good idea in the shower? Right? Like that's solitude at work. A good idea while you're sitting around stretching, while you're doing stuff. It's your brain's, like, nothing's going on. And you can always, I heard the strategy, like sometimes you can think of a problem you're having and then start doing other things, and your brain will kind of work in the background to figure it out. And then by the time you're done, you go, oh, I came back to this and here's a great idea. But you learn so much about yourself and about situations just sitting.
You do. Yep. And mind like water, that's a common thing we talk about. Just calming your mind, and whatever that is, like I said, whether it's walking, sitting, stretching, yoga, whatever, taking a shower, sometimes mowing the lawn, doing something mundane like that, washing your car. I mean, those things that I do and have done, I come up with some great ideas.
Yeah.
I enjoy detailing my car. I mean, that's something I like to do. So I'll do that. And then all of a sudden I'm stopping, oftentimes getting on my phone and writing a note, thinking of a new podcast. I almost every time I think of an idea when I'm doing that. Right. And so that's what we're talking about. So again, like you said, it doesn't have to be the meditation that we think of.
And it's funny because, I mean, you brought up the podcast, which is great. Like, if we just showed up and said, what are we going to talk about today? Which we kind of do, right? But
we have done that.
But really most of the best podcasts we do, and most of our most popular podcasts we do, are based on things that, like, throughout the past week of us doing stuff, we kind of text each other and go, I want to talk about this, right? Or I want to do this. And like, what happened during the week. So it's not our brain actively thinking, what am I going to podcast about? What am I going to podcast about? It naturally pops in. There's a great movie, right? And spoiler if people haven't seen it, but it's about 20 years old, so whatever. There's a great scene in Men in Black 3. I love Men in Black 3. I think it's the best one of the three. But there's a scene where, like, Agent K and Will Smith's character are, like, they're having this huge problem, and K goes, well, let's go to the diner and have some pie. Right. And Will Smith's like, are you crazy? Like, we don't have time for this. Like, and he goes, no. Like, this, if we're going to solve this problem, this is what we do. And, like, they struggle with it, but then they just sit and have pie. And then all of a sudden that idea magically comes out. Right. I really think people who make movies sometimes impact little, like, nuggets of good advice. Yeah. And I think that's one of the best ones. Like, just take time where you can just get your mind out of the daily life, whatever it is, detailing a car, sitting, listening to music, riding your boat through the sky on a basketball season. I don't know, whatever. Right. But yeah, so I mean, solitude, I think it's just a great tool.
All right, let's wrap up. So three ways to get smarter. Number one, education. So make sure you're educating yourself. We talk about educating yourself daily. Podcasts, books, listening to different audiobooks, whatever the case is.
Number two, conversation. Like, everybody that you meet has knowledge that you have no idea about, right? So learn how to effectively ask questions and really just be genuinely interested in other people and the way they think.
And three is solitude. Every day, take some time, 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes if you have it, and be alone with your thoughts. And it doesn't have to be sitting, like we said, it can be doing other things, but let your mind wander and see what happens.
Absolutely. And that wraps up this episode of the Achieve Results Now podcast. Like I said, if you know somebody who needs more wisdom, send them a link to this podcast. Let them listen to it. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you.